Hi guys, and welcome back to Hilltop Farm. I'm Jay, and today I'm going to be showing you how to cook chili con carne. But before I do, I have to share something. I was just telling my daughter, I was just looking out of our kitchen window here before I turned the camera on, and I can just see our kitchen garden, and next to the gate to the garden is an apple tree. And I'm straining to look, thinking, what on earth is that? And then I realise it's obviously a rogue bean has climbed into the apple tree, and it looks like there's all these beans hanging from the apple tree. Wonders of Mother Nature. Never mind, you had to be there. Okay, to make chili con carne, we start, as usual, all the ingredients will be down below where it says, I think it says show more. Click down there and there's a list of ingredients. So if I miss something, get it wrong, or you're not quite sure what I said, or it's down there. First thing we start with. Okay, we put a little bit of oil in the bottom of our stock pot. Make sure it's got a heavy base on it. It's going to have to cook for some time. Now, 2 finely chopped onions, 4 finely chopped garlic, 4 Now with this, we're wanting it to sweat a bit. We're not actually wanting colour. No caramelisation can take place. I recommend just do that. Medium to low heat. Pop a lid on. Okay? Now what I'll do is I'll whip that to a back burner. Now, in this frying pan here, more olive oil. Have a kilo of beef mince, so pop that in. We want that cooked and broken up. Now what we want to do, you know how when you start to cook minced meat or ground beef, whatever you call it, you get to a point where it goes what I call stewy, where it's all bubbling in its own liquid, and it's still got a pink look about it. Well, for some things we're cooking, that's what we're going for. But with this dish, that's not what we're going for. With this dish, we're actually wanting to braise the meat. Which means when it gets to that stage, you keep heating, and you go to the point where all that liquid evaporates, and all that's left is your olive oil and the fat that's indigenous in the meat. And then we're going to actually brown it, because we're actually wanting that flavour through it. Okay, now most of that water is starting to disappear now. You see that? It'll start browning at any minute. It's a rather interesting dish, chili con carne. I think the Americans think of it as quite their own, but it is actually originally a Spanish peasant dish. I suspect taken by the Spanish to the US, where the Americans have, as I say, made it their own. I think you'll find they've changed it in so many different ways, and there are so many versions of it that I'm not really sure, unless you actually go out to the country and find some very old Spanish woman in a village somewhere, I suspect you won't actually find an original recipe, because there's so many versions of it. This is just the version that we like here. All down that western side of the US was all settled by the Spanish many moons ago. So I guess it's not unusual that it's going to have a Spanish dish as almost a national dish over there. I don't know if you can hear it. It's starting to change in the sound of its boiling. It's gone from a gentle boil to sounding a little more serious, like it's got a bit more attitude. We want this to continue to brown. We don't want it burnt on the bottom of the pan, but we need it to have a bit of colour. So we should be back when it has a bit of colour. Can you see how it's colouring up? And it's with our particular recipe, this is part of the actual secret to actually brown it instead of, you know, doing that shortcut. And I mean, which is perfectly alright. I mean, you're not going to die or anything, but the texture becomes very different. And the flavour changes too. So, as I say, this is what we do. Now this is about right. As I say, we want it to start browning, not burning. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the onions forward and pop that back there. Now they've all sweated down. Just to put a little bit of lubricant into this, we've got 500 mils of ale. Okay? I'm just putting a dash in here to lubricate it. Okay, then, paying close attention, 2 tablespoons of ground cumin, 2 tablespoons of ground coriander seed, 2 tablespoons of ground cinnamon, and with our chili powder, all chili powders are different, everyone's tastes are different, so I start off with 2 tablespoons. You can go up to 4, but I start with that. Might add a dash more of that. That's what I start with. And then adjust to taste, you know. You can always add, you can never subtract. Now mix it round. It is cooking all the while. Bit more of your ale. Oops. Now we're getting a nice pasty consistency. We want 4 good dollops of tomato paste or tomato puree, whatever you call it in your country. 2 generous tablespoons of honey. Continue to mix. Pour the balance of the ale in. Continuing to stir. This whole time this has been on an extremely low heat. I don't know if I mentioned that. Lowest it can go. I have 2 pint jars of our homemade, home canned tomatoes. Again, you could use tins. Okay, mix that through. We take our browned mince, transfer that into this pot. And I mix all this through. Now you see all the bits that have been scraped off the bottom of the pan. They're all in here too. They'll break down and give good flavour. Beef stock. Again, our lovely homemade beef stock. Now what I do is I'm going to tip it in there. Okay, now while I'm letting that heat up, so we can get all the yumminess off of there, the last thing we add to here is the zest of an orange. You may think that's very strange, but citrus, it's the taste of the Mediterranean. España. Okay, so once that zest is mixed through thoroughly, get your beef stock, go around your frying pan, making sure you've got it all off the bottom and down from the sides. Okay, and then pour it in. Mix it through. Now the recipe, as you'll see when you read it, calls for 500 ml of beef stock, 500 ml of ale, but then this has to simmer on the lowest heat you can possibly muster for 2 to 3 hours. You have to keep your eye on it in case it burns. But as you can see here, I'm already inclined to think that I'm going to add another half pint of the beef stock, because this particular batch looks particularly thick and there's no way that's going to simmer for 2 to 3 hours without sticking. That's about half of it. I'll keep the other half on standby in case it needs topping up in the cooking process. So, as I say, continue to cook that on the lowest setting you've got for 2 to 3 hours. You will need to check it regularly. No more than half an hour between checks, and as it thickens, probably more like 15 minutes. And when it's done, it's served on rice. So when it's in its last half hour, you might want to think about getting the rice on and getting that ready. This has been bubbling away for a few hours. You will get, you know, the oil separation thing on the top, but that's alright. You can stir it back through, stir it in. Okay, now 2 cans or 2 quart cans. I didn't have any of my own can, so these are organics, from a tin. Anyway, there's 2 of them. Red kidney beans. Can you see where that oil separated? It's virtually all mixed through now. Which is what you want. You don't want to take all the oil out, because as I said before, oil is one of the main things that transfers flavour. And although you sort of think, oh, it's quite a bit of oil, it's probably, when if you actually measured it out, it'd probably be like 4 tablespoons. And if you've seen the size of this pot, I mean, it could feed a football team. So how much of it are you actually getting? You know, what, like half a teaspoon? Seriously, who's going to sacrifice the flavour? This is when you taste to, you know, for see if it's hot enough or needs something. Delicious. Absolutely delicious. Now, I put 2 heaped tablespoons of chili powder in there. I'm using a milder chili powder, and we happen to like chili that, you know, blows the top of your head off. I recommend you start with 1 flat, and until you get to know your chili powder and your family's taste, you then increase from there. As I said, you can't take it out, but well, that's lovely, just lovely. And if you find you have overdone it a bit, when you serve it, you put a dollop of sour cream on it, and serve it with some pita bread or naan bread or something like that. Will also take some of the heat out of it. Now, next we'll get our rice. Beautiful, look at that. And as I say, if you think it's too hot, or you have a daughter like my eldest, serve it with a dollop of sour cream. And there you go. And that's how we at Hilltop Farm make chili con carne. And as you can see, there is enough to feed the Spanish Armada in this pot. So it goes a long way. Okay, so if you've enjoyed this video, make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss out on any other videos. Share it with your friends on social media and give us a big thumbs up. And don't forget to comment, so we'd love to hear from you. Okay, so until next time, it's goodbye from Hilltop Farm. See ya!